Welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Town of North Topsail Beach monthly Board of Aldermen meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 1st. So if everybody could please silence their phones and their watches, then I think that we are good to get started. And we're going to start with the invocation from
Before we start, can I just ask that the agenda be amended to include an item that I will talk on in my report, but to add under consent agenda to approve the contract with ECS for the fire station?
Yep. So would that be J under the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
And that would be for ECS to approve their scope of services and fee schedule for an estimated $49,822.50. And that is, again, for testing services required for the fire station project.
And it looked like they were very in-depth testing services when I read that yesterday. Yes. Okay. Okay. Now we'll do the invocation.
You need to make a motion to
accept the
to amend the agenda.
Well, do you want to do that when we get to, we didn't do the approval of the agenda.
Okay, sorry, I'm ahead of myself.
Your head.
Everyone.
That's a given.
Bless this town and may it remain a beautiful and friendly place to live. We pray that this board makes fair and informed decisions this morning. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of our armed forces here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. We also pray that our town be spared the ravages of hurricanes and other natural disasters, and that everyone associated with the town remains safe and secure. Amen. And now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we're going to catch up to Alice, and I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda with the modification that our town manager has requested to add item J, ECS, the scope of services, and the consent agenda.
So moved.
So I have a,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then the next item would be our manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Beach projects, the Division of Coastal Management has approved our permit extension request to continue with Phase 5 project through May 17th. The contractor has approximately 1,200 feet of shoreline remaining, beginning approximately around 346 Seashore Drive and working northeast to around 113 South Bermuda Wind Drive. The trucks will continue to access the beach at the Gray Street access. The contractor is progressing approximately 100 feet per day. As long as the weather continues to cooperate and we don't have any other issues with sand mine production, we're on schedule to finish the Phase 5 project this season. Notice was also published yesterday as an update that went out to social media and to our website. Sea Oats Cost Share Project. Notice was published on April 8th for residents to participate in the Sea Oats Cost Share Project for the season. This is available again to property owners of North Topsail Beach, where the cost is shared between the resident and the town in a 50-50 split, up to $25,000. Delivery dates are scheduled for May 10th, May 17th, May 31st, and June 7th. Please, again, go to Coastal Transplant's website to participate in the program. As far as participation so far, I touched base with Coastal Transplants yesterday, and we've reached around $21,000. So there's been a lot of interest this year. I'm happy to report it appears to be a good, successful project that we'll have. Fire station number 2, April 1st was mobilization. April 9th through the 24th, demolition occurred of the existing fire station. Notice of demolition was issued prior to that starting. April 11th through the 18th, temporary construction entrances were established along with installing the sediment and erosion control. April 29th through May 3rd. Site clearing is ongoing. Groundbreaking ceremony is scheduled for May 15th at 10 a.m. I sent a notice out on Friday, just making everyone aware of that. The contractor will also be working on a notice that will go out to the media as well. I've been waiting for the architect to review proposals for companies to perform special inspections and construction materials testing services. This is what I've asked the board to amend the agenda to include today. I received a recommendation on Monday requesting approval to proceed with ECS Southeast LLC to provide these services. In order to keep the project moving forward, I felt it was necessary to add it to this month's agenda to get approval. The company provides qualified engineers to provide reporting, testing, inspection services that are required for earthwork, soils, concrete, structural masonry, and asphalt pavements. Based on the scope of services and the fee schedule that they have submitted, they estimate the cost of services to be $49,822.50. This will be paid for out of this year's capital improvement fund budget as part of the project. So, was there any questions on that before you get to the consent agenda and approve it? Okay. North Carolina Beach Inlet Waterway Conference. Registrations and sponsorship have been made for the spring NC Byway Conference that will take place May 9th through May 10th in Emerald Isle, North Carolina this year. I will be attending along with Alderman Plettle and Alderman Leonard, as well as the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee Chair, Larry Struthers. Crosswalk installation update. The tentative schedule for the crosswalk at Villa Capriani that the board has recently approved is as follows. NCDOT approval of selected lighted sign manufacturer we anticipate to take place on May 17th. NCDOT approval of selected electrical contractor on May 24th. Issuance of town purchase order to the manufacturer May 24th. Issuance of town purchase order to the electrical contractor on May 31st. Issuance of NCDOT encroachment permit June 14th. Issuance of a notice to proceed issued by the town will take place June 17th, we anticipate. Projected start date of installation July 15th, and anticipated NCDOT approved turn-on date July 31st.
Can I ask just a quick question on that? We've approved that in this fiscal year's budget. This shows that it's going to happen in next fiscal year's budget.
Potentially, yes.
I mean, based upon this, because we're a June 30 date.
Right.
So are we gonna have to do, when this gets firm, maybe have to do some kind of budget amendment or something?
It depends on when we would get invoice for the activities. We're hoping to pay as much as possible out of this fiscal year funds, but it could very well go over into next fiscal year. But we can't deviate from the process and protocols with NCDOT.
I have to say, I am a little bit surprised about how lengthy of a process it is when there's already a crosswalk sign up, and that's not anything that you guys are doing. I'm just saying that NCDOT already has one there that we're just trying to improve upon, and we're still 3 months, you know? I know, I'm just beside myself on that. I mean, the whole point was for safety at that crosswalk with the restaurant there, and we'll be way past the July 4th biggest holiday that we have, you know? So that, if we can improve upon that, we need to, because as you said, we have the funds now. But I'll save my questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Announcements. The town participated in NCDOT's 2024 Spring Litter Sweep on April 20th. I would just like to thank the Public Works Department, the Fire Department staff, and the residents who participated. They collected in total 8 bags of trash. We've been working on initiatives over the past several months in anticipation of sea turtle season upon us. Weekly turtle talks will resume here beginning Tuesday, June 4th at 9:00 a.m. The sea turtle vision display has been built and placed in Town Hall. It's in the back of the boardroom for anyone who wants to take a look at it before you leave today. But it will be here, and it's in place for turtle talks this season as an educational item for demonstration. It shows a difference in how sea turtles view amber lights, red lights, and white lights. We've procured and have available the sea turtle friendly lights for purchase at Town Hall now. This initiative is to encourage and make it convenient for oceanfront homes to change their lights over to the amber turtle friendly lights. So those now are here at Town Hall and available for purchase. We also approached Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital about partnering to design and procure doormats that will read "Lights Out May through October" with sea turtles on them. This will be a helpful educational initiative that property owners along the oceanfront and rentals can purchase and place to remind their guests to turn their lights out. We will have them again available for purchase at Town Hall, and they will be available for purchase at the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue. By partnering with them, we're able to order large quantities at a much lower price, and with both of us having them, we can reach more rental homes, not only on North Topsail Beach, but all of Topsail Island. We expect delivery of these mats this week, so they will be rolled out soon. The light ordinance was drafted and is pending review, and we'll have probably more discussion on that at the June meeting.
Alice, I don't know if the other towns have any merchandise for sale, but when you do meet with the town managers again, can you just let them know about the doormats? In case they want to send anybody up. I mean, we all, as you said, it's
Right.
be nice if they all knew.
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, the next item is the open forum. Do we know if we've got anyone signed up?
We do not have anyone signed up for the first open forum.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak now? No, okay. We're going to move on to public presentations, and we've got the North Carolina Department of Transportation Assistant Division Traffic Engineer D. Allen Hancock here. So, sir, if you could please come up to the podium and make sure you turn it on so that it gets recorded. And the topic is the NCDOT letter of intent to repeal the speed limit 45 ordinance number 1033725 for the 3.92 mile section of 1568, which is New River Inlet Road.
Yes, what we've done is we've done a number of studies out here to include, speed limit studies, reviewing of signage, pavement markings, actually physically driving this road. And basically, from our point of view on this, we actually looked at the geometric design of the road, such as the geometric width, the vertical and horizontal, because keep in mind, beach environments, roads settle a whole lot easier with shifting sands than other locations. The other thing is that we've driven this road. I did just for this meeting. And when you start driving that road at 45, and then you drive it at 35, you see a major difference. The other thing is we also pull crash records on this. And there were a ton of rear end collisions. Now, that could have been distracted driving, or that could have been simply someone stopping short. But either way, if you had the extra couple seconds to stop, that's a safety concern that may have avoided some of these. In the last 5 years, you had 22 accidents, and basically 8 of them were rear-end collisions. So we are recommending that the speed limit be changed to 35.
Okay, what I would like to do so that we do this in an orderly fashion is I'd like to just go around to each board member and give them the opportunity to ask questions. And I'm going to start with Connie Plettel.
I don't really have any questions except for I would like this delayed because it's my understanding that this was initiated by letters that you received from one particular neighborhood group. I would like to hold public hearings and find out what the rest of give people on New River Inlet Road the opportunity to give their points of view, other neighbors, other communities, condos, and see what everyone else, their feelings are as well, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can hold off on that. That's not a problem whatsoever. We got between 12 and 15 requests. Most of them were from the same subdivision, but not all of them. A couple of them were from, areas close by. But yes, that's not an issue.
All right, because it could be that they all want the same thing, or possibly they don't want the same thing, but as town representatives, we really owe it to our citizens to be able to give them a voice.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Alderman Leonard?
Yes, good morning. Your letter here dated March the 1st states, 1, 2, 3, first line of paragraph 4, based on the findings, the speed data does not warrant a lower speed limit.
That's correct.
Okay? But then you go on to say, since there's a large residential presence along this road, that you still recommend lowering the speed limit. I'm in concurrence with my fellow board member here that we need the public's input here, because you're contradicting yourself here.
Well, again, that was based off the width of the road, the vertical situation with the settlement, because you have no paved shoulder out there,
Okay?
and you've got skinny lanes.
And I've been driving that road for 22 years, sir. 22 years.
I've probably been driving
Okay.
just as much.
Yeah, probably not every day.
No, not
Okay.
every day, but
And I'm not here to argue with you, and, but it just, you contradict yourself in your document.
But if you also note, what I said earlier was this was also based off our physically driving it, the conditions, the residents that are around the road.
Well, again, you've got one development where primarily this came from. It's a development that is the first one when you leave here and you go down that road that you turn into. Okay, that's where that development is. So it's not even like the folks in that development are really having to travel the entire length of that road to get to their homes like she and he and she and I have to.
I
So
understand
there's got to
that.
be a balance here somewhere, and maybe 35 isn't the right number.
Well, there were 4 different engineers that drove this road, and they all came up with the same conclusion.
Okay. I'm just thinking how all the way to Camp Lejeune from Four Corners, the speed limit's 40. Okay.
But it sounds like, Alderman Leonard, you are in agreement to request a delay so that we can
Absolutely.
get some
Yeah,
additional
we need
resident
we need
feedback.
more time, and we need more input.
And I have no issue with that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I agree that we really need to get more input, because you have just a fraction of the residents that really responded to the initial request. But did you consider that DOT plans to add bike lanes to the road the next time it's resurfaced, which we understand is going to be in 2-3 years? So there's going to be
Right.
a wider road and a safer road for users,
And we may
bicyclists.
reevaluate it at that time, but we have to evaluate it off of current conditions.
And this is a side issue, not related to what you're talking about, but while you're here, and since you're a high-level administrator, we've had several residents that drive that road complain about the interface between the concrete decking at each of those bridges and the pavement, which has sunken. And my 18-year-old truck complains every time I drive that road and hit that 2-inch gap between the concrete pavement and the blacktop. So DOT did patch that several
Right.
years ago, but it's in need. If you're not going to resurface the road very quickly, it needs to be addressed again.
Well,
Maintenance issue.
that's a maintenance issue, and I will bring that up to them, because again, anytime you're in a beach environment with shifting sands, there is always going to be settlement, and that is just a constant maintenance issue. So I will make sure that Brad Hayes with Onslow County Road Maintenance is aware of it.
Thank you.
That's an easy one. I can do that with phone call for you.
Laura?
Yes, I wanted to talk to you about whether your study looked at Island Drive down to the Surf City line, because North Topsail Beach is just not north of the police station here and Town Hall. So did you look at Island Drive? Because down by 11th Avenue, 13th, 17th, where we are, we're on a straightaway, and the
Right.
speeds get up higher there. And so 45 is a suggestion, and we're seeing people at 50 and 55.
Yeah, and that becomes a law enforcement issue. And unfortunately, there's just not law enforcement enough around in most of the counties that we're over. and I don't have a fix for that. But we have looked at Island Drive as well. I don't have that data in front of me, but we've looked at that within the last year or two.
And so your recommendation still is for Island Drive to stay then at 45?
That was the recommendation at that time.
Okay, so then we'll have to look at additional crosswalks for safety
Well-
from areas where there are, 60, 50 townhouses that are trying to cross over that, because at 45, 50, that is a danger.
Well, I don't deal with crosswalks myself. One of the other engineers in our office does. But I will tell you, just make sure you think about not putting them out every X amount of feet, because then complacency comes into play. And also it gives a false sense of security for the people crossing. And I'm not sure where you have those in mind or not, but just something to keep in mind when you do decide those.
Okay, thank you.
We have had one beach community in another county, I won't say which one, but they did not get approval from DOT, and they were putting them every 2 blocks, and they actually had someone get hit, luckily not bad, just more or less a little bruising, because they just walked right out in front of traffic. It does give a false sense of security when you start putting that pavement out there, or pavement markings out there. You can have the crossing with just the signs, and it's been a general characteristic of people that they look first, because that line across the road is not there. It's still a crosswalk, but, it seems to make people think a little bit more.
So I found out from you that your boss didn't give you a copy of the 4 pages of questions I sent you, so I'll rather than go through an hour of those, because the fact that you're going to revisit this thing, a lot of stuff that was brought up here, for example, that first 0.7 miles there are no houses on.
Right.
Okay, and the same issue with Island Drive, and I think what you just said, which I read your letter that way, is there's an enforcement issue as well. Because when
Yes.
you look at your 85% stuff and you talk about that kind of stuff, you got a lot of people going over the speed limit.
And just to, throw a point on that, that is a common thing in beach environments, because I'll give you an example. New Hanover County has over 400 sworn officers. They can't be everywhere at all times. So, it's a hard battle that law enforcement from, the larger law enforcement agencies to the smaller ones are fighting. You just don't have enough people out there to enforce 24/7.
The good news for us is during the summer, you're lucky if you can go 20 on that one. On that
That's-
street, because
that's another
Because it's
factor.
been backed up to, I don't know, you know where Villa Capriani is,
Yes.
right? Okay, so I live a quarter of a mile from there. On the beach weekends, they're backed up all the way past Villa Capriani to come back out. And the other thing I put in here, and I'll hand you this, but I'll email it to you too, is I think it was Dick Peters asked about getting a rotary up there. Getting some kind of, if there's a better, I'm talking about at the intersection, either that or we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to have something up there, whether it's police, whatever, on the weekends, because it gets jammed up for hours that way.
You talking about 210?
Yeah, right where 210 hits it. So like a lot of stuff they brought up here, and the fact that you're willing to revisit this stuff, I think, I'll make sure you get this. Because these are the questions I think that a lot of people had here. The background on it, the fact that you've got most of the commuters on the island are in the north. The people that are going to work. Like when I'm out on my deck at 6 o'clock in the morning having a cup of coffee, that's when the traffic comes from the north end.
Okay, see, this is first I'm hearing this. I'm the head of incident management for this division,
Right.
out of the 6 counties. That's something that if you want to give me a call, we can discuss on possibility and options. A rotary for seasonal is probably not going to happen due to the cost factor, but there are other things that we can possibly look at.
Perfect.
And I would have to really sit down and review the situation before I could tell you what those possibilities could be.
Okay.
But we had the same problem down at Oak Island. We had the same problem at Sunset Beach, as well as Ocean Island this summer, because they had an increase of tourists that was something like, one of them told me it was over 48%.
Oh,
In 1 year.
that's low for us.
No, I'm saying that was in 1 year from what their normal is.
Oh, year over year.
Yeah. So, it was just something that nobody was prepared for.
Okay.
So
No, I'm not in favor of a rotary. I'm just saying that that's something, when I read your thing, it looked to me like enforcement as much as anything else, which is a
Right.
hard thing to do. But also I think the seasonality that we've got in the town is a big thing. So rather than going through all the questions I had here.
Well, one of the things is that, and this is a very common thing in beach environments, is that you have a lot of distracted driving. If you have if you have a lower speed, you have more reaction time. So that's one of the things that we look at also when
But-
dealing with beach environments. But most of those are probably going to be during the summer months where you're not able to go more than 25, 30 miles anyways.
That's what I was gonna say,
depending.
in the summer months when we are full, you can't even get up to 30 miles an hour on New River Inlet Road.
I know we had the same complaints
what,
all over, and they want to raise the speed limit to get people out of there quicker. And and that's coming from town officials, and like I said, that's not going to cure your problem. You know,
No, my bigger concern, everybody has spoken, and I'm glad that we're all in agreement that we can get our thoughts to you and delay this and get some citizen feedback so that we do the right thing. But if there is a way to improve upon the schedule for that crosswalk at Villa Capriani, I don't know if you got to drive up that far today, but right in
Yes.
front of Villa Capriani, there's a restaurant in there. The crosswalk it's hard to see when people are standing to come across, and it's very dangerous. So
well,
that's,
you're waiting on the encroachment part, correct?
well, the schedule that Alice was able to present earlier today, it just sounds to me like there's all kinds of stuff, and there's already a crosswalk there that exists. All we're trying to do is improve upon it with potentially a lighted sign that people can push the button and, get drivers' attention to cross.
It's a blind intersection from both directions.
Okay.
But there's a
It's on-
crosswalk there
yeah,
now.
but
Do you
that's
have the
problem.
encroachment already
It's-
for
yeah.
this? Because this is not something I deal with. This would be a district office item.
This is something that we can follow up on the side between Public Works
That would be
and
fine.
DOT.
I guess
Yeah.
the big thing is y'all have already gotten the encroachment permit.
Well, there's already a sign
No.
there is all I'm saying. There's already a crosswalk there.
Okay, so why are y'all trying to get encroachment? Is that for the actual apparatus itself?
Yes,
Okay, so is it a marked crosswalk?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, you just need it remarked.
and we're putting up.
Lighted flashing signs.
Right, but that'd be something that y'all would be handling on that part.
Yes,
Okay, so, but what y'all need from DOT is to have it remarked.
Okay.
And that's all we need.
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. We can follow
no,
up on that.
that's why I said let us follow up, Public Works, no, we do know.
That's fine.
Let us follow up with Public Works, with DOT.
Okay, because like I said, this is something that I have not been made aware
Because
of.
this is not his area
But,
anyway, so
You know,
you're
part of
just,
traffic services is pavement markings. So
Okay.
if it is something where you need it remarked,
It's marked, it's fine.
y'all
It's
just,
putting up the flashers.
it's putting in an improvement
okay.
with signs and cross.
Yeah, because that may not be a
paintings.
DOT issue at this point. That may be something you're waiting on vendors for.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then we would not have anything to do with that.
All right, well, we greatly appreciate you coming today, and I imagine from here, Alice, we will communicate with you. We'll try and figure out how to get the public feedback.
Yes, well,
after.
if it's the board's intent, if you want to create a special hearing,
Okay,
then you need to let me know
okay,
that you want to do that
okay.
and when.
We do want to do that. We'll have to
Okay.
figure out the dates.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be fine. Is everybody on board with that?
I'll just email
Yeah.
what I sent to him.
Yeah, because like I said, Bob works for me, but he
One-
didn't send
one thing
me
at a
that
time, please.
information.
I'll
He
tell you.
works for you?
Yes,
Okay, I didn't know which way it worked.
yeah. But yeah,
Good, that's good.
we're more than willing to work with the towns as much as we can. I mean, thing is that we could have gone ahead and passed this without any questions, but we want the townships, the cities, municipalities to be on board before we do stuff like that. So for us to wait on this, I have no issue with that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And it sounds like from a board perspective, the request I had from this side of the table was to put it on the June agenda. So if we could work towards that, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And then we can follow back up with you.
But the only thing I will say is, like I said, if you ride the road, ride it at 45 and then ride it on 35 and see which one you feel is more comfortable, especially if you own a truck. Because a lot of the trucks, the contractors, were all over that road when I was riding it this morning.
Yes.
Because most of them are on their phones.
That I am pretty positive you're accurate on.
Okay.
We can change the speed limit all we want, but if people are on their phones or texting while they're driving, it just doesn't matter.
Well, why don't we have a full agenda, so let's keep moving. Thank you very much, sir. We
No
appreciate
problem.
you coming. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our coastal update with Mr. Fran Way. Hi, Fran, how are you?
Good, how are you, Mayor?
Good. We're ready for you if you want to give us an update too.
Okay. Sure. Let me share my screen. So we have the May update. Coastal update. Here we go. Just an overview of the North Topsail Beach shoreline from phase 1 up at New River Inlet down to phase 5 along the Surf City border. The different areas we've got, the project this last season we had, some phase 1 project. We did some phase 5 work, and we'll kind of go into each of these. And then in the future, TI Coastal with the disposal area use for nourishment, major nourishment for phases 1, 2, and 3 is, in the planning phase. Here is just a recap of the phase 1 project, from last season, from just a month ago, and then the upcoming season. This material was placed in March, right here in front of a lot of the St. Regis and the Porpoise Place area, and this was the previous year, and the town does have a permit to place material up here in front of the Topsail Reef Villas, and some of the spots up to the northeast of that, just right at the shoulder of the inlet. We're just hanging on to that for now. That permit is still good, but coincidentally, this is actually the area where the Corps is scheduled and slated to do a project this upcoming season. And the upcoming season will start in November and go into the winter. This is just an image of the last quarterly meeting, which was in March for the Army Corps of Engineers, where they were pointing out the shallow areas along the Intercoastal Waterway. And Cedar Bush Cut is generally pretty good depth-wise, and there is there's a little tricky spot in here, but yeah, Cedar Bush Cut is pretty stable in general, and it usually is the Intercoastal Waterway that does need attention, and it's getting attention pretty much every other year. That material is getting placed on the phase 1 shoreline, which is a good thing. It's in beneficial use of dredge material, and the Corps, is very big on that. Here is the DA disposal area 143. And this is the area where that's been used for an upland disposal for decades, and there is good sandy with beach compatible material in here. This is the disposal area 143. This is where the sand for the major project in phases 1, 2, and 3 is going to come from. There was a good amount of studies, geotechnical studies, 10 or 20 years ago for DA 143 back here. But now the studies do need to be updated a little bit to be able to use the beach compatible material within DA 143. Down at the bottom, the outer edge shoal of New River Inlet is planned to merit, which is the sidecast dredger that the Corps uses. It should be here this month to kind of facilitate the opening here. And obviously, the edge shoal is difficult, and to keep open with the way the Corps does it. The board has worked trying to kind of get them to expand that, and it just, the Corps is kind of set in their ways. The next project, here's the Phase 5 project, as Alice mentioned. We have that 2-week extension into May. The project is going okay. It is scheduled to be completed here in the next 2 weeks. They are about 600,000 cumulatively placed for the Florence project. and then continues to move. Here's just some recent Phase 5 photos, and these were from about 10 days ago when I submitted this package. Phase 4 is still geared. It will start here at the beginning of next season, and that'll be about 3,000 cubic yards of material. It basically, and then I'm not sure where the contractor is going to start yet, but this access right here, right off the the main Highway 210 coming onto the island, that's a good access where we can give the Gray Street access a break and kind of really focus on this access where there are fewer residential issues. In terms of overall beach project updates, Phase 1 project was completed, and there is an upcoming core project. The New River Inland Management Plan, I checked in with Dial 40 about 2 weeks ago, and they said, they had basically the draft environmental impact statement it's 6 chapters total, and they are working on chapters 5 and 6, which is the final chapters, and they are moving forward with that. And so that is good. It's still it's a frustrating process in terms of the timeline. The state grant nourishment, that's about 300,000 that will come up here this next season. The Phase 5 beach nourishment, we're updating volumes daily. Working Saturdays, they aren't working as many Saturdays. There were 2 Saturdays coming up, but we'll see. They have been able to catch up working Saturdays, and now they are caught up. And then, with the Corps, and I haven't really, talked with the board at all about this, but, going to the Army Corps of Engineers and trying to get them to change the way when they dredge the intercoastal waterway and the channels to Jacksonville. Do we want to try to bring up, and then Chris Gibson, has tried to do this previously, and we didn't get very far because it is the Corps project and the Corps controls it. But in terms of trying to get a more optimal beach placement of that material, that's just something I think we always want to keep pressure on the Corps from, and with the board. Working and continue working with the North Topsail Beach Finance Officer and DEC Associates regarding kind of all the projects and the funding behind it, and then kind of permitting for all the projects. And that is my summary.
Does anybody have any questions for Fran on the board? No. The one thing, Fran, I wanted to just get your opinion, and actually the rest of the board as well, since our projects the projects for this season are getting wrapped up as far as getting off the beach for turtle season. I'm thinking we might be able to give you a break for a few months as far as having to attend to go through your report with us, but we could still include it in our agenda packet. And if there's something that comes up, I know you and Alice are in constant communication anyway, if there's something that comes up before we start to gear up for the next project season, then certainly we just get you back on the agenda. Is the board okay with that? Yeah. Fran, are you okay with that? You're good?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then if you guys just stay in communication, and if we need to get you back on the agenda face to face, we'll certainly do that. All right. Thank you, Fran.
Good.
I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, the next is the consent agenda, and I'd like to request a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope.
Since the agenda was, just so the minutes reflect this, we amended the agenda to add an item J to the consent agenda, so that was approved just then with everything else.
Okay, under continuing business, we've got the 2024-2025 budget ordinance and fee schedule. We also, along with this, have what Alice has pulled together that summarizes It's the letter for the budget that we've reviewed quite a few times in detail. Is there anyone on the board that would like Alice to read the letter, or are we good with just having it posted? Okay, we'll just post it then. So what I'm going to do is ask for a motion to adopt the fiscal 2024-2025 budget ordinance and fee schedule.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to let the public know that we worked very hard on this. Alice and her staff just did a phenomenal job. There is no tax increase this year. Yay! And so we're pretty proud of keeping, in light of the economic climate right now, we're very happy to keep the taxes down for our citizens.
And still be able to accomplish the big capital projects. Agreed.
Exactly.
Okay, so any other discussion?
And have a contingency and a healthy fund
I
balance.
know, yay.
One other comment, and do not anticipate a tax increase in the future. Because that's part of the fiscal
Yeah.
plan.
Exactly. Okay, so we have had a motion, a second, discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Okay. Alderman Leonard, I'd like to turn it over to you for a Washington update, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go up to the podium. Can we bring the slides up, please, Ricky? Okay, Alice and I went up to Washington as part of a larger group from the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission, April 15th to 17th. We had representatives there from the 3 island towns, elected officials, and all the town managers. Next slide, please. Okay, we had several trip objectives for the 3 towns. You see that ours are up there, and I weighted this presentation for our town more than just all 3 of the towns, because we were there to take care of our business. And those are our priorities. We're to secure Senate support for our North Topsail Beach Cobra Bill passage, which is House Resolution 2437, and any companion legislation that may arise when the bill goes to the Senate. We continued efforts with the congressional staffs and the congressional and the Senate staffs on that. And we'll talk about those in a minute. We talked about continuing Corps of Engineer funding for dredging of both the New River and New Topsail inlets. And the big one that Fran touched on a minute ago was when we talked to Corps of Engineers, we talked about the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway disposal area, DA 143 up there by the crossroads, for using the sand for ongoing projects. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. And then the FEMA, the last one is FEMA. Next slide, please. So Monday, we had in-briefings with the Ferguson Group, who are lobbyists through the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission, and primarily is former Congressman Mike McIntyre and Stephanie Missert. We met with FEMA Region 4, and we did this Zoom meeting. Had lots of discussion with them, but what we were really trying to get out of them was an idea of, or a promise, an agreement to have one centralized disaster head person, and that abbreviation up there stands for Public Assistance Program Delivery Manager. But historically, because our town is comprised of 2 different counties, FEMA assigns these things by counties. So we have one for North Topsail Beach, and then Surf City and Topsail Beach have another. And the other thing is that these folks, a lot of them are on a 120-day window, or 120 or 180-day assignment. And the clock starts ticking, and they're here, and they're working, and then their time runs out. You know, the clock strikes 12, and Cinderella's gone and replaced by somebody else who comes in and has a whole different idea how the disaster recovery should be run. So we've gotten some agreements from them. They were very receptive, which is a big improvement for FEMA from past meetings up there. I thought they were very receptive in understanding our needs and being willing to work with us. Monday afternoon, we met with Doug Levine. He's on the House Committee on Natural Resources, Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries, and that's the subcommittee I testified in front of back in September. We talked to him about where we were with the CBO scoring process and timeline and the follow-up and monitoring of progress. And it was really, more than anything else, just reminding him, hey, we're still here, we're still working on this, and we're still needing your support. He was very receptive. And as far as the CBO scoring process, any bill has to be scored by the Congressional Budget Office to see if it will actually cost the government money or save the government money. And in our case, as I've stated before on this issue, if they repeal COBRA here, we'll have more of our homeowners able to enroll in the National Flood Insurance Program, which will actually increase their treasury. And we're a donor community to the NFIP, to where we take much more in, we send much more in the way of premiums than we get back in claims. Like a fifth of what we send in, we get back per year in claims. So long story short, it's a win for everybody. And it's just now, it's a matter of how long is this going to take, and nobody can really tell us. Next slide, please. Tuesday, we met with Senator Budd and his staff, and we requested and secured support for the COBRA bill and any follow-on legislation that may entail on the Senate side. I think from where we're at, I believe that we're going to be fine getting this to the House floor and getting it approved on the Congress side. I think the fight is going to be when we go to the Senate, and we'll talk about some ideas on how to work against that later here. Then we met with Congressman Rouser, and this is more of a thank you tour for us from our end, because he did co-sponsor the bill, even though he's not our congressman. He did co-sponsor the bill with Congressman Murphy for our COBRA. Next slide, please. Okay. We met with Congressman Murphy and his legislative assistant, Ray Celeste, who's been down here before with us, to talk about the COBRA bill and continued support and assistance. And the next bullet up there about the representative from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service coming down here is when I testified, the Fish and Wildlife Service representative said that the Fish and Wildlife Service was not in support of our COBRA bill. At the end of my testimony and the end of his testimony, Congressman Murphy asked him a question, and he asked him if he'd ever been to North Topsail Beach. And I knew that he hadn't, because he and I had made small talk before the hearing started. And he said no, he hadn't. And subsequent to that, Congressman Murphy's office submitted a question for the record, which I think they have 10 days to answer. And the question was, would you be willing to go down to North Topsail Beach and meet with Alderman Leonard and Manager Darian to see COBRA for yourself and see the situation on the land? And that's how we got here. We had the woman who's a water, wildlife, and fisheries subcommittee staff head was down here last August vacationing with her family, and we got a call that she wanted to go out and see the beach. And that's how we got the subcommittee hearing, and that's how we got where we are today. So right now there's a flail of emails between Congressman Murphy's staff and Fish and Wildlife Service trying to figure out who the person is they're going to send down here, when they're going to send them down here to visit the beach, and hopefully more to come on that. We met with Senator Tillis' staff. He was not available. Again, his staff folks are very receptive. Both he and Senator Budd's staff folks were very receptive on supporting this bill when it gets to their chamber. Next slide. We saw the Corps of Engineers. The big thing for that was the Surf Cities project, and unfortunately they didn't get a lot of real good concrete answers that they were kind of hoping to get that day. I actually commended their town manager, Kyle Brewer, afterwards for the level of composure he was able to maintain throughout that discussion, because I'm not sure Alderman Leonard would have been quite so composed when it was all over with. For us, the big takeaway there was the Corps' agreement that we could use DA 143 for future projects, and this is contrary to what Fran briefed, I believe. We were told by the Corps, and we asked the question, Chris Gibson and I, very, very clearly and very concisely, the studies that are in place for that sand, are they still current enough to not need to be redone? And the woman really from court didn't really understand, so I said, look, here's what I need to know. I need to know if we're going to use a certain amount of calendar time to redo these studies that we can be using to put sand on the beach, because we don't need to redo the studies. And she nodded her head, and she says, no, the studies are fine. And she didn't say you're approved to go, but it was clear that we're all on the same page, and that Cora in Washington is supporting our desire to use that sand for what we're going to use it for. And then basically on the way out the door, because the Corps said we were out of time, we got to talk very quickly about continued dredging funds. Next slide. Yeah.
Before you leave that, just real quick, for the people that haven't been following Chris's beach plan, the plan is to use that area and
Right.
how much money that's going to save the town by using that. And also, if we use that, it ends up being no trucks that were in.
Right.
Basically, to be able to do 1, 2, and 3 in 3.5 months.
No, it's a big win. It's a big win,
It's a
and
huge
it's,
win.
you know, and Chris sent me the study a while ago because I asked him about it before he went up there, and it looks like it's good sand. It's beach quality sand. So, so here's some background. You know, just sort of a background on where we were with the House Resolution 2437 for Cobra removal. Nothing new there. It's just some background. It's a slide from actually last year. Next slide, please. Okay. CBO scoring's where we're at. Then it'll go to the House floor, and then it'll go over to the Senate. Either our bill will or there'll be a companion Senate bill. The one issue right now is they're trying to wrestle around with. There's a bunch of Cobra bills floating around that are in kind of the same place. And are they going to send them all individually, or are they going to make one giant Cobra bill? And there's pros and cons to both, or maybe we could just tack this in on the back end of some spending bill or something, which is what I would love to see, but we don't know yet. Next slide, please. Okay, here's where, hopefully, especially for our out-of-state property owners, people who live and are represented somewhere else, who I hope are watching, you can really help us out. Write to your congressmen and senators and ask them when this thing comes up for decision to support our House Resolution 2437. I will say that when the Natural Resources Committee approved it to go to the House floor, it was passed along party lines. It was passed 19 to 15. And it was right down party lines, Republicans passing, Democrats voting against. So, we'll get it out of the House, I think, but the real fight's going to be in the Senate, and that's where we need, what can I do to help? Write your elected officials. And, maybe we'll put something together, some sort of a sample if you want me to, and we can put it on the,
I think
our webpage.
we may still have something out there on our website.
Yeah, we got to start driving this home, though. We're getting to the point where it may be very, 2 years out, it's one thing, but right now, it's timely for us to start asking people to help us. Next slide. Okay, I was up in Congressman Murphy's office. Subject to questions, this is all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for Alderman Leonard? No. I wanted to thank you both for all
Yeah.
the time that you spent up there.
Anybody from here? The one thing I did want to say, and I was saving it till the very end, our town manager was exceptional up there. It seemed like whenever I got ready to forget something, she remembered what it was I needed to say, or what point we needed to get across, and honestly, and I will say this very candidly, of the three managers up there, ours was the best. And thank you. And thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I do want to. Sure. So with Congress, I know you were saying that this is a cost savings. When they do the scoring, do you feel it's going to show that?
I've talked to our lobbyist up there, and I've got some paperwork, and and they're like, gee, we don't know, but it looks like everything that they're telling me is what I telegraphed here. We're a donor community to the NFIP now because we send more in premiums than we get back in claims, and that if we put more of our, when you think about what flood insurance does for the homes that we have in this town, you're talking about steps and decks. You really are. Maybe your first floor dry entry, or you know, that kind of stuff. But primarily, it's not big stuff. So it's not like you're watching your home float away because it's on the ground. So what I've been told, my conclusion, and the conclusion that our lobbyist, Mr. McIntyre and Stephanie Messer, have given me is that it should be a win for everybody. Now, who knows what they're going to do, you know? But I'm confident that it'll go our way.
So I guess what I'm saying is on the financial side, you don't see, at best, it's a wash. Like there's not a huge, they're not going to look and have to vote and go, this is a giant expense.
I don't think
From
so.
what you can see.
Yeah, from what we can see.
You're kind of leaning more towards the environmental part.
Yeah, then we have that to play with. Yeah.
Which to me is where getting someone here to actually look at it and go, well, you're not really saving anything.
Right.
You may think you are
Right.
on paper, but the reality is it's developed.
Right.
You're not fixing anything unless your hope is the island just goes under.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and everything disappears.
Well, two things. The last time we went through this, probably 3-4 years ago, pre-COVID, right around Florence time, the organization that was the biggest impediment to moving forward was Audubon Society.
Sure. It's not a shock at all.
Yeah. So, but we took Congressman Murphy and Congressman Rouser out. We took them actually out on the beach, and we stood right where this is federal flood, and this is Cobra. And I stood there and I said, and you just watched their heads explode, you know. And so then we brought Nick Miller, who was the Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries staff director, when she was down vacationing with her family down on Island Drive. We took her out, did the same thing, toured her through the whole town, showed her that really when you think about what Cobra was supposed to do and the level of development in our town right now, they just don't really match up at all anymore. And that it sort of illustrates that the Cobra was a mistake in the first place for the town of North Topsail Beach because of how the analysis was done. And the analysis should have been done on the ground, driving around looking at all these houses and all the infrastructure, and it was done by a flyover and some aerial photographs that missed a lot of the infrastructure that was in place back in 1982. And that's that's the fight we're still fighting. So I hope that answered your question. And I know we got a lot more on the agenda, so I'm going to get back in my seat. Okay?
Thank you, Alderman Leonard. Okay.
Just one quick question. Are you gonna give us a sample template letter with kind of so we can?
Yes.
I have access to some other Congress people as well, so I can
There-
take a bunch of them if I get the summary.
Yeah, and we have some of those on our website right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the use of the boardroom for resident business meetings, and I'm going to turn this over to Alderman Olszewski. I get it right? Did I get it? Okay.
So bringing back to the board the policy that was in place and the reservation form that was in place to allow citizen groups like HOA meetings or AA meetings to, we allow the Turtle folks to use the boardroom. So at this point, I'm not asking for a vote. I'm asking for people to look at the policy and the reservation form with the changes. And if we don't want to delay the meeting further, to get back with me as to whether the changes, you see additional changes or any additional changes to the reservation form. So if you can get back to me and the policy on those things, then I think it would be prudent for me to make additional changes and bring it back to the board for the June meeting for a vote.
Well, and I think at that meeting, the board has not approved it at all yet.
Correct.
Right, so we have to have both of those. Are we going to allow resident meetings here, and then the policy and procedures and fee schedule would go with that?
Correct.
So if everybody could get their comments back, I think, you think in 2 weeks, like by May 15th?
I would think so. 2 weeks should be enough, and then I'll be able to make changes again with the town clerk to the policy and the reservation form, and then we could get them in good form for a vote at the June meeting, both on the idea of allowing citizens to use the boardroom again, and then have a policy and procedure in place with the form.
Make sure you copy Alice, we don't have a town clerk.
Yes.
Well, and my only comment as I read through it, and I know some of the other board members have started going through it as well, is, and our attorney referenced this at the last discussion, we're not going to be able to, I don't believe
Vet.
myself or Alice or anybody should be able to approve or deny somebody, like it's either you're allowed to have a meeting here or you're not.
For a
That's the point
meeting,
Brian-
not a
that's the point
social
Brian
event.
made.
Right.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I think it was a KKK reference.
The only discretion, if any, that should be delegated to the party accepting or rejecting it are objective things like number of people,
Right.
time. Arguably, there's a case out there where there was this one group that had a history of inciting violence, but it had to be so bad. But once you start getting into the purpose of the meeting, the context of the meeting, the content of the meeting, you run into some issues there. I mean, I think if we can do it, I think it's a great thing, but we just need to be cognizant of that. And of course, you could always, if you elect to go forward, you could always rescind it and say, we're not doing it anymore.
Okay. So I'll take those comments and any others that are sent to me and work back into the policy and the reservation form. And we can address it.
The way the Supreme Court generally deals with content-based issues such as sign ordinances, if you have to read it, then it's content-based. I'd apply that same analysis here. If you have to get some sort of something other than number of people, time, name, and that kind of thing before you make a determination, I think you're running into some potential issues there.
Okay.
You're saying don't have anything that's got discretion.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, with the exception of objective criteria, which,
Time, date,
Date.
right.
yeah,
Right.
number of people,
Yep.
et cetera.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on then to new business. And the first item here is for the Board of Adjustment vacancies and applications. And before we actually do the board vote, I know we're going to do it by ballot. We decided that's the last meeting. But Brian, would you be able to, for those in the audience and the board members here, just describe what that process is so we make sure it's flawless?
Sure, there's two ways you can appoint people. One is by motion and vote, that's aye, yea, or aye, nay votes. And in that event, the mayor would have the right to break a tie. The other way is by written ballot. Written ballots are little sheets of paper. You write down the person or persons that you're voting for, and you have to sign that. Those also are required to be retained in the clerk's office, even though we don't have a full-time clerk at the moment, for inspection by the public, so you can see who, read the signatures if you so like. The ballot method, though, does not entitle the mayor to break a vote, so the only problem with that is if you keep getting ties and ties and ties and ties, you may want to switch over to the motion vote. Is that enough, Mayor?
And before you proceed, I just want to make a note and clarification on the spelling of one of the applicants, Jason Starr. The correct spelling is Stahr.
Okay.
Unless he wants to go to
So then what we're going to do, and are we, Brian, should we do three? So the applicants for consideration are Christy Barefoot, Jason Starr, and Lisa Lee Kozlowski. And how many openings do we have? I'm just trying to
Can I make a
summarize.
suggestion?
Yes, please.
We've got a regular and we've got an alternate.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, I think that and then Brian can weigh in, I think that we should nominate all three and then vote. The first round would be voting for the regular and the second would be voting for the alternate.
So there's
That
one
we're
regular, one
right,
alternate. That's
right,
what I'm
'cause
trying to make sure
right,
everybody
because we're
understands.
considering three people, and I think, my feeling is we should consider all three that apply.
Certainly.
Okay.
For a total of 2 openings.
For a total of 2 openings.
Roger.
And
But
can
then
I-
the first step should be the regular, and the second step should be the alternate. Otherwise, you gotta write regular and alternate on your ballot.
And just to point out, right now, we've got, per the UDO, there's a requirement for 5 regular positions and 4 alternate positions. And that's per the current UDO. And right now, your current membership is Hannah McLeod, Scott Morse, Kip Malcolm, and Susan Meyer.
But remember also that Brian
Was
told
no
us we have we have the option not to appoint all those, even if it's in the UDO. Because right now, we're looking at one alternate, as I understand it, and one regular member, correct?
You definitely want to try to get a full board of 5 of regular, and especially when it comes to variances, because that requires a 4/5 vote. And if there's not 5 people here,
It's 4-4. You gotta have all of them.
you have to have all of them, and then generally the applicant, not generally, if I'm assisting, I always give the applicant the opportunity to stipulate that they understand that they have to get 4 out of 4, or continue it until we have 5.
So, but I want to just revisit,
What's that? Currently. no.
so, wait a second, I just want to revisit what Alice had said. So right now, there's 4 regular and 0 alternates, correct?
We have one alternate that applied.
No, I
for-
mean on the board right now.
Right now, you have Hannah McLeod.
Right.
You have Scott Morse, you have Kip Malcolm, and you have Susan Meyer.
As 4 regular members.
Yes.
Just to clarify, what she's saying is Lisa
I-
Lisa, who's applying for the regular, is the alternate today.
Correct.
Okay.
And per UDO, you're required to have 5 regular
I
member
got that.
positions.
Yep. Okay,
Just one other point of clarification.
regular,
Um,
for the regular.
If you're going to nominate, and I agree with Mr. Grant's suggestion, nominate all 3. If it could be a situation where 2 votes is the most votes cast for a particular person, do we want to say that that person then would get that seat, or do you want to require a minimum of a 3 vote majority to fill the seat?
I thought we agreed on a simple majority. So it would have,
That'd be
in this
3.
case, would have to be 3.
Okay, yeah, that'd be my recommendation.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So if it's like 2, 1 to 1, then no one gets it, we start
So,
over.
so do I need to make a motion to accept all these as candidates? Is that the first step? And then
As,
To nominate.
to
to nominate,
nominate all 3
yes,
to be candidates for the 2 openings.
yes.
I just made a motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then I believe what we're doing is starting with your candidate suggestion for the regular position. If you could write
Yes.
them down and pass them over.
And
we'll
make
let
sure-
Alex-
make sure
I would
you
suggest
sign
you
your
write
ballot.
regular
Did
at
you
the
sign?
top and then the name.
I think the names are member and alternate.
Yeah.
We're
This is for
adding
member.
something here regular that we haven't used before,
That's fine.
except we started using it today, so it's member or alternate.
Okay.
All right, so this first round is for member.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Did you pass your stuff? We have them all, you do have them all.
I think we have them all.
Okay. You look like
He's
you're-
already good,
Okay,
so.
you're already ahead. Regular member, Lisa Kozlowski.
So one.
Regular
Lisa.
member, Lisa Kozlowski. Regular, Lisa Lee Kozlowski. Regular member, Lisa Kozlowski.
That's all you need.
Regular member, Lisa Kozlowski. And regular member, somebody wrote 2 names. Lisa she wrote her, never mind. They wrote her own name. Jason Starr.
Okay.
So
this-
you
and
have
then
4,
4 to 1.
4 to 1. 4 Lisa Lee Kozlowski and 1
Yep.
Jason Starr.
Okay, so Lisa is our new regular member for the board, for the,
Right.
for the
Okay.
board adjustments. So now if you can
Well,
I'm keeping them separate.
keep in mind, as I was saying before, is there's five, there's a requirement for five on, regular membership
You got
for the
five.
UDO.
You got
Okay, so
five.
you will have Hannah, Scott, Kip, Lisa, and Susan.
Yes,
So that's fine.
that's fine.
And per the UDO, you're required to have technically 4 alternate positions.
But we can choose less,
It-
according to council.
Well, per the UDO states 4 alternate. You must have 4 alternate.
And we had this discussion before with Brian, and Brian said, at the discretion of the board, we do not have to have 4 alternates.
I'm just stating what's in the
I know.
UDO. Okay. Jason Starr, alternate. Jason Starr, alternate. Jason Starr, alternate. Jason Starr, alternate. Jason Starr, alternate.
So
So
it's anonymous.
unanimous.
And I want to thank you
Jason,
to everybody who did apply.
So, Mayor, I would like to suggest now that the town continue to advertise for applicants for the Board of Adjustment so that we can maybe find additional alternates.
Is that the consensus?
We only have one alternate right now.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah, you know, sorry, there's a problem with that, Mike, and that is you, under the terms of noticing these things, you have to say when the current term is up, which is now. You're supposed to do it 45 days before it's up. So if you go through the protocol we've got, you can't do what you just suggested. Yeah, I think we have to stick to the rules that we just adopted. The way it is you have to notice this thing, you have to tell them when they're up, which is now. You're supposed to do 45
But
days
if you have
before they're up.
but we have a vacant alternate position. It's not we don't have a vacant position that expired, I don't believe.
Go
No.
back and look at the rules we've got for filling.
I know the
stuff.
And they're on here, coming up.
Right, but my point is, how do you notice something for 45 days when it's now? You're supposed to do 45
It's
days
not
before
now.
it's up.
We
Yes,
don't.
it is.
We only have one alternate right now. The other alternate is blank, right?
So, I'm asking you, so are we in a position now with Christie to take a vote on a second alternate?
I'm not.
We're not, okay.
No.
So your suggestion is that we open up the alternates, you're saying by process, that's not,
I don't know how you do it.
okay.
So this is the next agenda item though, so I think if
Okay.
we're done, the board is done voting, then we move on to the next
Okay.
item, which is policies and procedures for appointments, which is Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, turned out I was misinformed on the rules of procedure. As the agenda says, for some reason I had thought that they were incorporated in the UDO and that we couldn't make any changes, as we would need to make changes to rules of procedures for the planning board or the board adjustment in the future as changes might be needed. So, but my idea was, well, we'd need to get it out of the UDO, but I was informed by town staff this week that that's not the case. But what is the case is the rules are kind of,
I think you need to refer to Brian on that determination, if that needs to be removed from the UDO or not.
well, it's my understanding that they're not in the UDO. Maybe I'm misinformed by town staff.
I'm sorry, what is the question that,
The rules of procedure for the planning board and the board of adjustment, are they part of the UDO, of our town's UDOs?
They-
Or are they,
they're
Sep-
located, I'm sorry, Mr. Benson, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wonder if they're separate, if they're not.
I believe they're located and codified in the UDO, but the rules themselves are not development regulations. So I don't know that you would need, if the question is whether we'd have to have a public hearing and send it to the planning board and all of that before we modify the rules? Is that
That's the question.
I don't believe that we would.
Okay, well, can we just put the rule, my point was going to be, can we put the rules with the committee as supporting documents on the town webpage, planning board, supporting documents, rules and procedures, so that the committee members and anyone that wants to apply for the planning board in the future will know what the rules of procedure are for that board, and likewise for the Board of Adjustment.
Got it.
That's really what I'm after.
Well,
is-
there are two animals here, and I think we're calling these rules of procedure, but subsection B on new business is policies and then procedures for appointments. That's how you get into the board. Once you're on the board, the rules of procedure govern how you conduct yourself.
Correct.
Right, so I didn't know if we skipped, I thought, it sounded like you were asking about rules of procedure just then, which is the next item on the agenda.
No, that's something else.
That's rules of procedure.
That's how, we're gonna talk about how we appoint people to committees. I'm talking about the planning board has guidelines, just how they operate. The Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee has a charter, that's how it operates. That charter is part of the town website for the
Yeah, we
Beach
can-
Inlet.
you can put
I'm
that
just
on.
asking that the rules that the planning board and the Board of Adjustment are following, their guidelines, be placed on the town website.
Yeah.
It
They're
was
already
really
matter-
something I could have just asked the town manager to do, but I already had this agenda item because I was concerned about, the UDO aspect and whether we can modify these rules in the future
I
when
think
we
what I
need
would
to.
like, to Mike's point, is a very simple thing. I would like council to tell us what has to be in UDO and not. Because I thought the point of this is, if we wanted to modify the planning board rules by saying, we're gonna meet on Thursday rather than Wednesday. If that's in the UDO, we now have to go through a hearing and everything else. What has to be in the UDO and what doesn't? Like, can we modify, that's where I thought you were going with this, Mike. What modifications can we make? If not, then what can we take out of the UDO so we can make those,
Yeah.
technically, any little change in something that's in the UDO requires us to have a hearing, right? Now-
And number of members,
What's that?
and number of
Have
members.
and all that stuff.
Just like we were asking about the charter for the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee, we have made updates to what was the charter, we're gonna call them guidelines, and we want to bring those back to the board for approval. They're not part of the UDO, they're just part of the guidelines for that committee.
And we don't want them to be part of the UDO,
We
is his
don't.
point, because every time you modify anything, if it's in the UDO, you've told us we have to go back and have a hearing and notice and everything else.
Only
And for
development.
minor things.
Only development regulations, I don't think the rules of the boards, the planning board or the Board of Adjustment constitute a development regulation because it pertains to how they govern themselves, not to how land is used.
All I'm saying is, when you say, "I don't think," that makes me nervous. I would rather have something, even if it's just a paragraph to us saying, you're fine to do what you want to do.
I can
on
do
this
that.
thing. Is
I
that
mean-
okay? Because otherwise, I just want to put this issue to bed as to what we have to change or
That-
not. Because Mike and I have been talking about this for months.
Is there any reason why we can't put the rules that the planning board reviewed with themselves a few months ago on the town website?
Right.
That's-
No, there's
that's my
no,
question.
that's already a matter of public record, so yes, we can put it on the website. And so if.
So there's two questions on the table. One is, can those that already exist that are public record go on the town website? But I'm hearing a second question, which is, can we remove those pieces from the UDO?
Yes, you can, you definitely can remove them from the UDO.
Okay, thank you.
Then I think the third,
Okay,
Let's let Brian finish.
well, and I
what
think
he
that,
said.
I think the third question is, if they're not removed from the UDO, what's the process to amend them? And I don't think you have to have a planning board public hearing to modify those rules, despite the fact that they are presently located in the UDO. But if it's easier to pull them out of the UDO and codify them somewhere else in our code of ordinances, we can do that as well, if that's the direction.
But my point also is, and I'm going to use the example for the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee. Our charter, we're revising the charter to make the guidelines more appropriate. The charter was put in place before the committee actually forms, so there's some things in the charter that really don't apply once the committee is active and operating. So if we want to make changes to our guidelines for that committee, those revisions need to come back to the Board of Aldermen for approval. That's my point.
This board is the only board that can make those revisions.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
So Mike, it sounds like you've just gotten through C. But you need to come back to B, which is policies and procedures for appointments. Correct?
Oh, I did the wrong one.
It's okay. No, it's okay. You had
That's
both.
what I was saying a minute
Oh my
ago, and y'all
gosh.
looked
I'm
at me
sorry.
like I had
I'm
6
sorry,
You were
folks.
on a roll. I wasn't
Well,
going
you're
to
also getting ahead of us on everything.
That
So if
I'm
we
sorry.
could just come back to the agenda, which is item B under new business policies and procedures.
Whoops.
Okay.
All right. Got it.
So I was tasked with revising the policies and procedures for appointing members to town committees and boards and authorities, which we don't seem to have any. And all of the aldermen contributed revisions to the policies and procedures statement. The main changes, and I don't know, Ricky, if you can find that, put it up on the screen for us or not. But the main changes that we are making to those policies and procedures for appointing members to committees is under Part A, under policies, we are now stating that a resident of North Topsail Beach who is registered to vote in Onslow County. Last time we had a discussion trying to determine, because the committee applications for Board of Adjustment, Planning Board, say a resident or a citizen. It doesn't, and we asked the attorney for a definition of a resident or a citizen. Because we're a beach community, some people would consider themselves residents, but yet they live in Raleigh, you know. Well, so anyway, to simplify this, to define a resident, we are now stating that if you want to serve on a committee, that you should be a registered voter of Onslow County. That's one big change. The second big change is item B, about applicants considered with family members employed by the town. We don't think that is really an issue, so we are dropping that policy. A lot of the other red that you see is wordsmithing to make clear the policy. The other big thing I want to point out is on the next page, Ricky, it's item H there. We put a time limit on the time from which a person who may have resigned for a committee must wait until they can reapply to that committee, a time limit, a time interval of 6 months. Okay. And really the rest of it is wordsmithing again, just to make things clear. The last big change is on the third page, Ricky, item 4, right there. And you just saw us actually implement that. Appointment will be made by written vote of the alderman with the simple majority necessary for appointment. Each appointment vacancy will be voted on individually, and we just executed that particular procedure item this morning. So those are basically the changes, so I'm asking for the board to approve the revisions to the policies and procedures for appointing committee members to.
So if we can start with a motion.
Motion to approve?
Do we have a
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, we have 2 H's. You go back up there, put it back up, please. We have 2 H's.
That's the red
Yep.
line.
HH.
HHI.
I think it's supposed to be IGA.
It says IJ to the left.
If you get, what does it look like in the clean version, Tom? It says, the clean version is attached to.
Right, go to the next
Go to
one.
the clean version and see if it shows up that way. There it is.
HH, yeah, we have two H's.
Still H's on the clean?
Yeah, so if we can just fix that, please.
Yep.
There's two H's.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in approval with the minor grammar?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
H.
Okay, and we've already done C. That's okay, so we're gonna move on to speed limits with our police chief.
I believe Brian's going to cover with the ordinance in the next item, but what we're talking about is mostly the side streets, the town-owned streets. Many of them are 20 miles an hour. There are a handful that are 25. What we'd like to do is change them all to 20, which would make them all, most of the side streets, you're not going to get up to 20 or 25 anyway. So make it consistent, easy for us, and have them all posted, because there are a couple that were mismarked and are missing. So that's basically it, and I'll answer your questions about that.
So it's just a cleanup, is what you're telling us.
Yes, sir. And changing some of the streets from 25 to 20.
Right, to make consistency.
Right.
And was a recommendation by the parking committee?
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the chief on the standardization of the decreased speed limits on the side roads? Okay, do we need to make a motion?
You have the ordinances
Okay,
that
so we'll do
Ryan
that
has
next.
drafted
Yeah.
Okay,
that follows.
okay. I know, it's from,
You should have 3 different pieces of paper.
yes,
I'd ask you to start with section 6-79.
I have a 6-75.
What's this one?
Oh, it's that one. Thank you, Connie. Okay,
There I captured the additional streets that are in other locations in the ordinance. And if you'll note, I put the asterisk by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those streets are already 20 miles per hour, or excuse me, are already addressed in section 6-78. And then if you'll go to the other document, I have that ordinance there, 6-78. That originally read, those streets were 25 miles an hour, so I changed it to 20. So the question is, do we want to amend both statutes or ordinances, or just keep everything in the 6-79 and just delete 6-78? Because they cover those same 5 streets.
I would like to keep it all as one if I had a preference.
Okay.
Agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just more clutter.
Okay, so the motion would be to adopt the text amendment to 6-79.
Well, would that include this, I mean, why do we have Topsail Road out on its own for 6-75? Couldn't we put them all in 6-?
Well, that was a question I had for you too. I mean, do you want to put Topsail Road in there?
I would prefer to have them all in one.
Well, yeah, I think they're all, if you look at 679, the title, town-owned side streets, okay, it's all of them.
Yeah, let's put them all there.
Put them all under that. Yeah, and I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Combine them all.
Before you leave it, so when you're saying that, you can list the streets, do you say all and then use those as an example under this thing, or do you, because if you say all side streets, that covers it.
I'd list them anyway. I just to be redundant about it and make sure that it's precise, you know, all side streets to include,
But not limited to.
but not limited to.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
No, go ahead.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then with subsequent motion to repeal 6-75 and 6-78.
Yes, so if somebody could make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that was easy. Good job, chief. Okay, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
So we actually handled, so now we're on F, ordinance regarding regulation of parking lots, and this is also Attorney Eads.
And there should be, and I can't, I have it right in front of me, but there should be another,
Yep, 6-104.
right, and that's in the same section that, of the town code that deals with parking. And based on the information I was given, I added those prohibitions. Thank you.
I brought one from home.
And I would like to open this up for discussion, if any board members have questions. I have questions, but I'm gonna hold off on mine.
And this was also as a result of a recommendation from the planning, or the
Parking
parking committee.
Mhm.
Excuse me.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, it looks like you have something.
I do, I just, under, I wonder why 23 feet was selected as the distance to be limited.
We had it as 20, but Chief had given us a list of like larger pickup trucks and vehicles that would still be considered regular personal vehicles that were a little longer. And so that's why it was expanded to 23 feet.
So what the intent of part of this is that we want one vehicle to take up one space on these parking lots and not have to park sideways and take up 3 spaces since we're charging for parking.
Right.
And you've got these larger vehicles, larger than large pickup trucks, campers, RVs, that many can't park nose in and still have traffic around behind them, and so they end up parking sideways and taking up multiple spaces. And that's how it grew from 20 feet to 23 feet.
But Tom, something like, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
He's thinking still.
Okay, well, and my question is, so I've got,
Turn your mic.
I've got a pickup truck with a camper on it, I'm still gonna be within the 23,
I think you should be.
right? Does that sound right? Okay, and I don't disagree with you on taking up the multiple spots. And maybe we don't do it now, but at some point, do we have an area where they can park and we just charge them more?
Or why don't we just charge them for the number of spots they're taking up?
Yeah, well, the problem with that is spots aren't really lined off.
Yeah.
But, another thought I have on this distance thing is, I don't know how many school groups come here or church groups come here in church buses. Do we want to have like maybe a designated area for them and charge a different rate, getting back to Alderman Grant's point about having a spatial area? And let's say somebody is here from California and they're 50-foot long, whatever those super fancy RVs are, and they want to go to the coast in Atlantic Ocean, see the Atlantic Ocean, dip their toes in. I think we need to have some kind of a, maybe a spatial parking area for that situation, and again, charge more.
I mean, and honestly, the one that popped up in my mind is when you see somebody's having a wedding, and they have those little mini buses and stuff that they come in. You know, that's the thing. Right, I've seen those. Look, I'm against the giant campers coming in there and taking up 6 parking, because they don't take up 2 or 3. The
Right.
big ones take up a whole bunch. So if we, maybe, Tom, you do something, if they have to ask for a special permit, if they want to bring in something. I don't know what
Yeah,
the
but
answer is. I just
so-
don't want to, I see wedding buses there.
So the guy shows up on Saturday and he drives all the way to the north end like he did with his RV with the Canadian license plate on it and realizes he can't park there. So he goes back and he parks in the Jeffries lot, and it's 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. You know, who's he gonna talk to about getting a special permit when he's just rolled in hot and heavy from
Right, he gets a ticket.
from wherever?
Right, but
you know?
he gets a ticket under that. I don't have any problem with ticketing, you know, because I mean, the other answer is he parks in the county lot because they don't have restrictions on it.
Except that they close the lot at a certain time and they close the gate, and all of us who've driven down New River Road at the speed limit have seen cars locked in inside, you know, after the gate is closed, so.
I mean, my only issue is I'm thinking more about special events, not the person that drives a big RV and whatever. Because I have seen a number of buses with weddings and stuff, you know, periodically, and that's probably the only thing that or school groups.
So, but, Mike's point, is there a piece of town-owned property that we could look at to handle for larger vehicles, for buses, for schools, churches, people with larger vehicles coming from across the country to visit our beach, that we may be able to create a different parking area for that specifically and have advertised on the town website?
I think that there's an area that exists, and it's at far end of that Jeffries lot, that second Jeffries lot. And you know, but it's a matter of how much space there is, and, you know, how much of an issue this is, how often, you know, and how many vehicles it will accommodate. And, you know, we probably need to get Varner back in here to talk to him about it too.
I don't think that's a bad idea, what Tom said, the end of Jeffries, especially this time of year when we have like 8 more weeks of school left. We will have a lot of buses coming down from the different schools for their field days or whatever they call them. And I do know one of the things we were trying to prohibit is in that same parking lot. Last fall, I was out there every night because we had multiple turtle nests, and somebody had converted a big old bus, regular size bus, into a camper, and they were taking up, well, you can imagine how big a regular transport bus is. They were taking up that many spaces, and they'd actually spent, I think they spent like 3 nights. And that would to me be considered camping. Somebody there overnight that's fishing or stargazing or just walking the beach, I don't consider that camping. We'd talked to Chief and with Mr. Varner about it. It's kind of difficult sometimes to determine. I think Tom and I actually have different ideas about what camping is. Yeah. So that may be something we want to think about as well. But
yeah, example is this RV that was here this weekend. I was out on the bike Sunday. I saw them try to jockey that thing in and out from the far north end parking lot. Wife had to finally get out and ground guide him and turn him around, and he went all the way down. And we went out to dinner, and he was parked in the first Jeffries lot, and he had all of his screens up, you know, to keep the sun out, and the privacy screens, and he was there when we came back from dinner about 8:30 Sunday night, and my wife sent me a picture of him there at 6:20 Monday morning. So I think that's camping.
Tom, what is the fine? I mean, what I was looking at, if I take up 4 parking spaces and I violate this stuff, then it's 4 times.
It should be.
Right? Isn't that what it should be? So
yeah, but I don't know how, if we codified it that way.
Yeah, I don't think yeah, I think it should be, or there should be something. I know our parking people are pretty good about going in and talking to them. I know our police will reach out and touch base with them and find out what they're doing too. Some of these people, like I said, there's kind of a blurred line there. Some people are out there all night. They might go someplace for lunch or whatever, come back. I mean, my problem is how many parking spots they're taking up, especially in the middle of summer when the lots are getting full. And it's not fair if you're taking up 4 spots and somebody in a car is just, you're paying the same as somebody in just a regular passenger vehicle.
Yeah, so my only concern with any of this, and I like the idea of potentially opening up a special area for folks, and if it's full, it's full. They just can't park. But I don't want to be turning people away from being able to come to the beach, like the buses and things like that. I don't think people should camp in one of our parking lots. I mean, there's a brand-new Evolve campground right there on Highway 50. So there's places that they can actually stay and still come to the beach and enjoy it, but not take up spaces for other people. I have an issue with the 23 feet just because I do. I think maybe what we should do is designate an area for buses and RVs. And as I said, my thought would be when that lot is full, they can't park.
If we are going to have an area that's designated for buses and RVs, we have another issue on the same thing, and that is property hauling vehicles. If we did that, we might want to consider, we used to have, or maybe they still do, a company that would have a bunch of kayak rentals that they would bring out every morning, meet people. They get their kayaks and then they come back at night and pick them up. I don't know if that's something we'd want to reconsider as well.
I know that they do that down at the Onslow County lot. They have those kayak rentals down there.
Okay, that's a moot point then if they're doing it.
Yeah, I don't believe that there isn't any reason to have a work trailer or something like that. And I know when we have our motorhome and we're towing, we flat tow and we can't back up. So there's no way I would be in any of the town. Like, I'm just trying to think of why would I ever bring my motorhome to the town crowded lot and be stuck.
Because you're camping and you're on your way to somewhere else. That's why. And you know, this whole thing with the camping thing is almost a separate issue with
But
regard to.
there's campgrounds that they can go to.
Well, yeah, but there are campgrounds and they need probably to be redirected to said campgrounds because we do have people camping from time to time in those lots.
But
Case
that's
in point-
covered by
case-
C.
Case in point was Saturday night.
But that's covered by item C, Tom, and I don't
Right.
have an issue with that. Overnight camping is prohibited within town. I don't have an issue with that. I'm just struggling with A.
Okay.
I would like to hear what the chief has to say.
That's a good idea.
The only thing I wanted to say about camping was, and some people do come in here, and we talk to them and find out what they're doing. But we don't have an ordinance that says you cannot camp in the parking lot. So what I wanted to make for the officers was something very clear. What's camping? Okay, if you're here 24 hours and you're here over that, like you come in at 8 in the evening or 5 that evening, and you're still here at 12 the next day, but you're pretty much camping. And if you're here the second day, then I know you're camping. But I don't want them just to run people out. There's a couple of people that come here and they have campers and they sit on the roof of the camper and watch the ocean for 4 or 5 hours and they leave.
Right.
But we don't have an ordinance, so just think about how the officers got to step out and say,
Well-
this is a violation.
Yes.
Maybe we need to have a definition of camping then, because
Yes.
you've just described that somebody rolls in the afternoon and they leave at noon the next day. So they've spent the night.
Right.
They've spent the night, and that's camping.
Well, some
I
of
would
them, and some of
disagree.
them fish.
Because,
There's
but-
night fishermen.
because you have people that roll in and maybe they're not in a camper, maybe they're in a regular car or they're a bus or whatever, and they're there all day and they bring their fishing poles. They said, we have a couple different groups of shark fishermen who tag sharks. And, yeah, they come out and they're all day and they're usually until 8, 9, sometimes even 10 the next morning before they leave.
Well, it was pretty clear Sunday night that RV or motorhome or whatever you want to call it, with the license plate from Canada, Quebec, they were camping. They were overnight and they had all the blinders up, the curtains, the privacy
think
curtains up.
anybody's disagreeing
So,
with
and they were
that.
there till about 8 o'clock in the morning, so.
I don't think
I don't know
anybody's
how you
disagreeing.
define it. I don't know how
That's
you
why I'm
define.
wondering if Brian has any
And,
towns that have.
and
Well, I mean,
do you just ask them? And then you politely ask them to leave? I mean, I think it's pretty clear, we know these fishermen, but these people were overnighting here. Now, if we don't have a problem with it, then we don't have a problem with it, but we say that we don't allow it, but yet we're wrestling with what's the enforcement mechanism, truly. Right?
And we don't have one because we don't have an ordinance.
There is no ordinance to
For
address it.
one, as written, it says overnight camping, so that eliminates the people that sit out there. Overnight's overnight. And Chief, I agree with you, we need to have something that's enforceable from the police department's perspective. What do you do, and I don't want to telegraph to the public, but hopefully most people are good-natured. You walk up and say, this car's been here, it's 4 a.m, it's been here since yesterday, and they say, well, we're fishing. What do you do then? Say, I believe you, or I don't believe you, or show me your fishing pole?
Well, just like the officers say, there's no ordinance, so I can't make you leave. Now, if you're causing a disturbance, things like that, we have had people leave. We shut down the parking lot the other night because of a disturbance in one of the parking lots. But here's an example. There's one individual that comes and he'll stay 3 days, and he surfs all day. But he has friends that have a house down the road too. So he spends the night there sometimes. But is he in the camper or not? I don't know. I can watch him all night, but there's no ordinance to tell him he can't. But so at a certain point, on the second day going into it, you're probably camping.
So
You know, one night you may be fishing. The second day, you need to find a place to be to come here to fish.
So are you saying over 48 hours you would consider camping?
Well, and it's also, guys, it's not just overnight camping. We've had this issue with unfortunately people who have been sleeping in their cars because they don't have a home. And in that case, I know the officers have gone up to them in the parking lot and just encouraged them to please, go somewhere else.
We generally find them some help and
Exactly.
and get them moved on.
So
But
no matter what you do, it's going to entail a conversation with the person to find out what's happening. But I do think that the ordinance needs to be clear or they won't be able to enforce it. We do not need yet another ordinance that we can't enforce. We just don't need that. So
I like the verbiage as it is. Overnight camping is prohibited within the town parking lots. The issue then becomes one of officer discretion. Correct? And
That's
the problem
correct.
with that is, we're saying 24 hours, but at the same time, you just said, this guy that surfs out of here and he's here for 3 days. So is it 3 days for him and 24 hours for everybody else? Or is it the officer's discretion? Or how do we codify this in such a way that it's, back to the mayor's point, that it's enforceable?
And that's what I would ask, to have something enforceable. Now, that person may leave for 4 hours and come back. So,
right.
I'm gonna surf and stay.
But I mean, I'm still not comfortable with the first one, which is A. I am comfortable with B and C. And I know, the mayor doesn't get to vote, but I'm just not comfortable. I don't really think I'm going to see police officers out there with a measuring tape, seeing if it's 24 feet.
Now, Connie's going to be out there and then she's going to yell, "Citizens arrest, citizens arrest."
So,
Right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, clarify, Connie. So if I come and bring my small trailer with my own, surfboards, whatever on it, kayaks, and it's less than 23 feet,
That's fine.
I'm good. But you're saying if I have a trailer and my car and it's over 23 feet, I'm not good?
Trailers aren't
The
allowed.
trailers are not allowed.
No trailers.
No trailers.
So at the boat ramp, we're allowing them, because I'm dumping in.
We
the-
don't have any, we don't have any
That's not
jurisdiction.
Okay. So, so
yeah.
we're saying
We
in,
do 2 kayak launches.
that's
though.
right.
So we may, at the kayak launches, I believe you're talking about the oceanfront parking, and we may need to clarify that too, because we do have 2 kayak launches.
This is in the greater scheme of things, this is in our paid parking lots.
But so we have a paid parking lot where we have a kayak launch. So if I,
On Island Drive.
yes.
Right, and Dick's Peters Park
Yes.
is also paid parking.
So if I have a little car and I have a little trailer, I'm gonna be
You're going to jail.
23 feet. No, I'm just saying, we're not.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm just
'cause
trying to
everybody
add some
can't
levity
fit
to
those
this.
things
We have
in
really
their
wrapped
car.
ourselves around the axle here.
I don't like this at all.
The trailer axle.
No.
We have really wrapped ourselves around the axle here.
Turn off your microphones if you're not talking. Okay, I think that Alice has something to say.
I was going to suggest that it perhaps go back to the parking committee with the discussion
I
that's
agree.
ensued today to take into account and then come back with something else.
Oh, come on, we
That
spent
is-
another hour on this.
That's the best suggestion I've heard in the last 30 minutes. Thank you.
Now, is it the trailers are for sale or rent?
All right.
Okay, so are we good to move on?
Well, I just want to make it clear, as the parking committee, to come back with some ideas about what camping is. And c-
Yeah, but also the extra
Yes.
lot potential,
Okay.
the whole thing.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item, which is Alderman Grant's infrastructure item.
All right, so I actually will try to keep this brief because what I want to put in everybody's mind right now, we have got more projects going on than we've ever had in this town before. We've got infrastructure issues, water company, you know, I'm on the Onwassa board. You're talking about huge expenditures on that. You've got the county, who supposedly, I think Joanna, we were in that meeting with them, it's been over a year ago. They have not rolled out their plan. They're gonna do it. I think, Connie, you mentioned to me, maybe we ought to have a planning session on this board to talk about priorities and stuff. I think that Alice does a great job of knowing what the priorities should be, but I also think we need to make sure as a board that we're not giving her mixed messages on what's important. Because this infrastructure is also resources and everything else. But again, when I make a list of everything we've got going on, if you look at the next calendar year and fiscal year, we're looking at tens, if not $20 million worth of projects. We've got the firehouse, we're asking for money, we're doing all that kind of stuff. And I think that given how much we've got going, I think next year is going to be as busy, knock on wood, we don't have a hurricane, or more busy than we are right now. And I don't see that stopping for the next number of years. And so I think that from an infrastructure standpoint, I would like direction from the board. What do you guys want me to do when I'm meeting with the county people at those meetings? Okay, what should I do with the Onwassa stuff? Should I be for or against stuff? We're looking at stuff, I think that in terms of the CAMA use plan, I've heard people say, we need to take a strong look at how high we're letting people build. We've got people with hot tubs on the roofs of new builds. We've got all kinds of stuff going like that. And I think that we need to step back as a town and say, what can we accomplish? Because we can't ask Alice to be everything on all these type of things. And I would recommend, we get past the budget session, and it doesn't have to be in the next month or so, but to sit down and have a discussion about what's important to us and what we have the resources to take care of. Because I don't believe we have the resources in place to handle the stuff we've got going forward for the next couple of
We
years.
did have at the first budget meeting, we did talk about our priorities there, and I believe we were all aligned there. But we did not get into the weeds on any of them.
And that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're requesting is a work session
Right.
to just talk about all of the capital projects, but also all the explosive growth that's happening around us, and how do we
Right.
best get our input into that? Because
Right,
we've
because I
tried
mean,
a
one
few
of the
times.
weeds things, a simple one that you were involved in, I was involved in, is the county's redoing their planning. We were supposed to get that a year ago,
Yeah.
and they're redoing it again.
Well, in the
They haven't-
meanwhile, it's being fully developed on the other side of
And
the bridge.
that's the
Yeah.
problem, and I think that given the fact, and this came out when we did the, down at the Historical Society with the people in Ocean City, I won't mention who they are, but I talked to several of them there, and their response was, I don't want to be Myrtle Beach, and they're very concerned about what's being built, how big things are, okay, and how much the town is changing, okay, and the question is, you know, if you go back 5 or 6 years ago, we didn't have these issues. I don't see an end to what's going on now.
And I agree, I think that we ought to see, does everybody want to have a planning meeting? I think that although we did talk about our priorities at the first budget meeting, I think we all have the same upper level priorities, but let's as we whittle them down, let's see how we want to go and how everybody else wants to do it. Do we need a motion to create a, or we just, okay.
Does it need to be a joint meeting with the planning board?
No, I think this is just the Board of Aldermen at this point, but what I would also like to do is, I don't know, Laura, if you've had a chance to do this, or any of the board members, if you haven't recently gone through the CAMA land use plan, I would suggest that we do review that, because if we do want to get with the planning director or the boards on that, then we could do that, but we should read that first if we haven't.
And also that goes back to resources.
Mhm.
It's one thing to say that's a priority, it's a completely different thing to say that we've got the resources to make that, to get that done. You know, and I think the fact that, you know, with what you're doing on the firehouse is a perfect example of just, you know, that is a major project right now. And we've got beach projects, and Mike knows this, that are gonna continue for the next foreseeable future.
So I think what we're doing right now is just seeing if we have a consensus that everybody agrees a work session to dive into the capital projects and also our growth opportunities would be a good idea.
Yeah. And also, if you
Okay.
can, give some thought to what direction, you know, I can get up in front of Onslow County and say, you know, like some of the commissioners, no more building until we figure this thing out. I'm not sure that works, but that's been the consensus there, and I think that's why their planning has been stopped, is because they've been kicking out rezoning stuff, based on complaints from people coming in, and my feeling is, I ask you to think about this, we need to coordinate what we're doing with the county in that plan. And I talked to Frankie, the Onwassa guy, and he hasn't seen it yet either.
Right.
So I'm not sure how you're doing a plan without understanding how much water and power you have.
Right.
But you know, we're part of the complaining group, and
Absolutely.
rightfully so, because of what's going on right across this bridge.
Right.
I know.
You know, and I get it. I mean, and we need to be, and the county needs, and they are. I'm glad to hear that they are listening, and that you're going up there, and you're a known quantity at those meetings now, and plus with Onwassa to look at some of the issues that are facing us. I think for a long time it was the idea was, well, you know, more development means more property taxes, but property taxes for any municipality, as we well know, isn't something you get to hold on to. You throughput that, especially if you're a county. You throughput that because all of a sudden now you got more families with school-aged children, and you know, it goes and goes and goes. It's not like, oh boy, we're going to collect all these property taxes and put them in the bank, because you're not. But you know, I'm glad to see that the tide is starting to turn here.
Yeah, I want us to have the right direction on this kind of stuff as we're interfacing. And I know, like Alice was going over with me, like we're asking for money at the legislature and stuff like that, and I think those are fine, you know, but I also think part of talking about the stuff for the firehouse and things like that and work with those, I'm comfortable with that. But again, it comes back to the pie is this big for us. And the pie is not just money, it's resources. Okay, and who's gonna do what? And I think that's just a discussion after we figure out what our biggest priorities are. You know, bringing Chris Gibson in to build that plan for us was a huge deal, you know? And I just, again, you know, I don't have to go on there, but I think if the consensus is to try to put something together, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And I think from my perspective, I would prefer it to be in the June timeframe, if
That's
that's
fine.
not too late.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll ask for some dates.
You're already in May now.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item, which is the open forum. And Alice, do we have anybody signed up?
Yes. Joan Green from 2000 New River Inlet Road.
You're on.
First of all, thank you. Just for the record, my husband and I have different definitions of camping too. All right. My name's Joan Green. I live at St. Regis. I've lived here 3 years, owned here 10 years, like a lot of people. I came here about the speed limit. I set my cruise for the speed limit actually everywhere now. It's nice to be retired. I don't have to be anywhere in a hurry. There's no point in speeding. I don't get it. And I don't worry as soon as I see a cop because I know I'm going the speed limit. There's really nothing. And I don't have a relationship with you guys because really there's no point. But I am also very proud of our policemen. I tell people that are visiting us, you know, basically there's one road connected to, and they're on it. So, you know, at your own risk. So I'm very proud of our police. I stop for all pedestrians, regardless of crosswalks. I want people to have a positive experience here. I want people to keep coming back. I don't leave my condo on Saturday, you know. I live here, I know. But I just want to come out and let you know that I'm against lowering the speed limit on New River Inlet. I live at the far end, which means I have to traverse that entire road year-round, not just during the summer. So I just want to give my input. And thank you for delaying and saying what you did. And I did run out and catch him because I wanted him to hear from me, because that's why I came.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make sure you're here for the public hearing, please,
Okay.
next month.
I'll do that.
Meeting. Thanks.
I also asked him.
And bring your friends.
I also asked him to look at seasonal changes to speed as part of the consideration, which other beach towns do.
And I'll say, and you've already said this, but you can't go 45 on New River Inlet in the summertime anyways. And it doesn't even have to be busy. You just have to have one slow-moving car in front of you.
It's not her.
Okay, thank you. Do we have, who's next, Alice? Do we have anybody else?
Nobody else?
Yes, sir, come on up, and then Hannah.
This just came up as I was listening to you. I was wondering if there
Well, wait, name and address first, that's okay.
Can you
Dennis
just say?
Beauregard, and I own a unit at Shipwatch. What I was thinking about is, my main concern is the beach itself. Because all this is great, but if the beach goes away and this goes under, we have nothing anyway. Is there something that could be coordinated on the website that keeps up-to-date information about, for example, my question is about the jetty. What's happening with it?
So-
What are the dates? What are the times?
So there is, Alice just posted it, so we just, at one of our previous board meetings within the past few months, we approved our engineer to go out and get permits for the remaining beach areas as part of our 30-year plan that have never had sand. So in front of Shipwatch, in front of Marine, like 2, 3, 4, I think in one, with a temporary structure up at the inlet is already in play. And if you go on our town website under the projects tab, you'll see that presentation there that'll take you through that.
Well, I'm looking for something far more basic, and that is, like even with all the beach renourishment, I see, say, phase 5, phase 4, phase 1, we've got Cobra stuff going on, we've got jetty things going on. It'd be nice if there was one thing that just kept an updated, almost dates, like here's when these happen, because I can search through projects and read the entire project.
You don't have to, it's not that hard. So what I would suggest is if you take a look at the website and you look at, there's beach nourishment tab that kind of has the history, and then under projects is where you will find the more recent items. And if you think it's difficult at that point, after you take a look, let us know. You can reach out to me, reach out to Alice directly. However we can make it easier, we're happy to, but it's not, believe me, I share this link all the time.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from it, that it's not that difficult to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a PowerPoint that we just wrote that's been posted.
And does it
It's only
show
about four-
upcoming stuff as
Yeah,
well,
it's
like
just-
what's
yeah.
planned in the
It's
future?
like four
Yep.
PowerPoint slides.
Okay, I probably just haven't looked at it recently.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then another really quick thing on speed limit. I am one of the most impatient drivers ever. I hate driving slow, but I will say this. 60 miles an hour is 1 mile per minute. I don't know what the length is from here to the end. It can't possibly be that going from 45 to 35 creates anything more than an extra 5 minutes of driving. I realize that. I have to overcome that. That's my own personal problem. I'm an impatient driver. I think you're getting so many people on that road, it makes sense at some point to look at your speed limits. I don't like driving longer than I have to, but if you change your speed limit, I can't imagine the full length of the drive from the end to here could possibly be more than 4 minutes longer. Something just to think about.
Thank you, sir.
But we are, just to add another comment, we are working on updating a summary of the shoreline protection projects to give everyone a overview of what's gone on the last 20 years. And we're about 2 years out of date. So we're trying to get those pages updated.
So, Alice, when was the older engineer on? Chris, when did we have his presentation?
2 months ago.
Was that the February meeting? March, February. So I would suggest, which I've let other people know, the February meeting when the engineer went through a really in-depth discussion of what we're doing with the engineered beach is worth going back and watching.
Yeah, go to the video.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
he
he
just
did
nailed
he did a terrific presentation of everything we have going on.
He did, and that presentation starts at 1 hour and 27 minutes.
So you can go right into there.
So that's where you need to start.
Okay, so anybody else?
Absolutely.
Would anybody else like to speak? Yes, Hannah, please.
We left the mic on for you.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Thank you. Nice to see you all. I just have a couple of things. First thing is,
Can you state your name and address
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
record, please? Thank you.
Hannah McLeod, 1835 New River Inlet Road. I know that Fred had brought up about the breach at Building 1 at Topsail Dunes, and I just was wondering if there's any possibility that before the May 15th that we could get a shovel full of sand down there to avoid the breach getting worse. Second thing is, as we're talking about crosswalks and mileage and that type of thing, at the 20-mile marker at the beach access 1, again, that's a blind curve. It just goes to 35 right there. If you put 35 across the board, everybody will be going 50, just like they do from the 20-mile marker on down. You know.
That's how fast he goes.
I know, yeah, on his bike.
That's on my bike. It's on his bike.
But if nothing else, at least a crosswalk from the parking area to the walkway to the beach. I know that's county, but there's a blind curve there. You're just starting to get into the congested area with the condos and everything.
And
So-
we have that one on our list that we're investigating. Al has a list. The only one we were trying to get done quick was the Villa one because it was already there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
but
been
at least
asking
at
for
Villa
that.
Capriani, there's a, crosswalk
People just
on the
don't stop.
cement, but, yeah, it's really hard to see either way, because it just is hard to see. So-
Hannah, I've been asking for that crosswalk for the last 6 months, every time it comes up, and the reason it's a critical problem there is because it's a curve, and the parking lot entrance where you exit the parking lot is diagonally across from the access to the beach, so it
Yep.
makes it even more hazardous for people.
Exactly,
Get across the road, they're exposed longer, and a curve.
yeah. And like I said, the speed limit changes right there, and nobody changes their speed limit, so, And the other thing about the speed limit is, we have the suggested 35 3 times on the road before we get to the 35. So, if people really wanted to slow down, they could. And the police have enough to do. But they do sit there on where it does change at 35. And, when they have the opportunity, they take care of it. As a ancient member of the planning board and the Board of Adjustment, I ask that you give consideration to, first of all, I've got to do this in the right order, that you take a look at the bylaws, and we recognize that the Board of Aldermen have an unquestionable and legal prerogative to amend the planning board bylaws, rules of procedure, and unified development ordinance 2.2.0 to 2.2.4. These documents have served and fostered well-organized and functioning boards, planning board and Board of Adjustment. I know that I'm sorry, you have made adjustments to these boards over the last 5 months, and I ask that you please edit or change or do something legally to change the UDO and the rules of procedures for these areas so that everyone knows exactly how many members that we have and how many alternates, how many members that you want and how many alternates that you want on each of those boards. It's so confusing right now because if anybody went and looked, the only thing they can see is the 7 members and 2 alternates. So, and to that as well, in the future, I would ask that the board seriously consider your alternate as your alternates be the first choice to be a full member on any board. They have had experience, they have been to the meeting. If I think the procedure is now that they still, even as an alternate, if they want to move up to the board as a full member, that they have to make an application again. We hadn't done that in the past. And make a clarification on whether you want the planning board and the planning director to make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, because that's the way it was done before, for appointments. With this last, nobody came to the planning board or the Board of Aldermen and showed, the people that were looking for the positions to be filled. And I don't, it doesn't make any difference to me which way you do it, but previously the ordinance does say that the planning board and the planning board director will make a recommendation. So I just like to get it, just clarify it finally without all this back and forth all the time. So thank you very much.
Is there anybody else? Yes, please. If you could just state your name and address.
Does that work? I'm Gray Chapman. My husband is Shane Bardis. We both live at 13 Osprey Drive, and we're in the neighborhood that's the first one when you turn left. And I wanted to just talk about why we asked the Department of Transportation to lower the speed limit. I drive that road every day too. About 3 years ago, when we moved into that neighborhood, a woman was pushing her baby in a stroller across that street, and someone hit her. And she was able to save the baby by pushing the stroller away. And she was airlifted out, and it was really traumatizing. And every day I drive past that parking lot, I see kids and dogs that are, they're so excited because they're just getting to the beach. And people are getting them out of the car. And there have been so many close calls with kids running right there and dogs running out. So I really do think it was, it's a safety concern. My husband and I are both engineers, so we did some math, and I just wanted to address how much longer it would take to get to the south or to the very north end. The total length of the road covered by the proposed change is approximately 1.7 miles, with about 0.3 of this area already being reduced to 35 where the town park is. There are 3 public beach accesses along that proposed stretch of road, which is really the concern. The transit time is currently 111 seconds at 45 miles an hour. And that would be increased to 133 seconds in the entire stretch if it was to be a 35-mile-an-hour zone. So that's only a 22-second increase in the transit time, which I think is a pretty minimal increase for the increased safety concern that we all have. That was it. Thank you.
Okay. On the mayor's report, I am just thrilled that the fire station is moving forward. I appreciate everybody coming out today. I appreciate everything that staff is doing to just keep everything, the wheels on the bus, as I will say. And that's my report for today. So I'm going to switch it up today, Connie, and start with Alderman Grant.
Okay, just real quick, I wrote it down. Update on water company stuff. I talked to Frankie yesterday to make sure I had the latest stuff. People don't realize this. We've got a little over 3,000 customers, water company does, in the town. The way that it is, last year we had the issue, it was a 4-inch meter there. which they turned around to give us more. They've actually put in an 8-inch meter, which allows for more flow at Surf City. And then what we're going to pick up, Onwas is going to pick up about 1,100 of our 3,000 going forward right now. So in theory, we're going to have 2/3, 1/3 of the people served normally by Onwassa for us are now going to be served through the Surf City connection. We're looking at October maybe to have the pump station go in. They're pretty, Onwassa's pretty convinced that we're not going to have the water problems this year. The other thing we brought up is the potential at some point to put a water tank in. And it would be towards the north end of the town to do something up. And he'd thrown out a couple of ideas. There's nothing there. And I know that, I don't know if you sent something to them, but he got called by
Senator Lazaro.
yeah, Lazara about how much the tank would cost and what to do and everything else. And so he's looking at it, but he's talking like $3 million to put a tank in there. That's going to be a better long-term solution, I think, than the pump station.
Yes, we submitted a letter to Senator Lazara. We had a meeting with him, submitted a letter just requesting assistance for the fire station, financial assistance with building that since it's a ready, shovel-ready project. It's already underway, and then also to assist with conversations with Onwassa
Okay.
for a water tower.
And his point was that there typically are funds available for water towers, but to Alice's point, it has to be a shovel-ready project, so he was gonna personally reach out to Frankie.
He did.
And just, see if he could get something.
Yeah,
with
and
it.
Frankie's on there. And again, we talk about it when our planning, then I can get some direction from you guys as to what to push from the Onwassa side. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman Olszewski.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sir.
I just wanted to say, public safety is really near and dear to my heart. So as we look forward to continuing the conversation with NCDOT, speed limits, crosswalks, safety of our citizens is the key for having a fun summer. So I look forward to those continued conversations. I will be attending an event at Camp Lejeune tomorrow afternoon for kind of a spring kickoff and hope to enjoy that. And that's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks, Mayor. I want to thank you all for coming out to our meeting today. We had the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission meeting Monday, and as Alderman Leonard already pointed out, he gave the presentation about the washing trip, which is one of the main focuses. The other thing that the commission talked about is the CRC rules that got suspended by the Rules Revision Commission. And basically, it's coming down to trying to protect Jockey's Ridge from any kind of development or any kind of removal of sand from Jockey's Ridge. And so that's going on at the state level right now. The other thing is several of us attended the four-town meeting, and we learned about some of the projects going on in the other three towns associated with Topsail Island. That concludes my report.
Alderman Leonard.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out today. Thank you. I attended the Ocean City ribbon cutting for the display down at Missiles and More
Yeah, it was nice.
back on April the 20th. Four-town meeting has already been addressed. Did brief town events and projects at that, and talked about Washington. I'll be going to the spring reception at Camp Lejeune tomorrow as well. Got North Carolina Beach Inlet Waterway Association spring meeting, May 9 and 10. And I will be on May 17th attending the groundbreaking for the Marine Museum of the Carolinas in Jacksonville.
Nice.
Yeah, so that concludes my report.
Alderman Plettle.
I want to thank everybody for coming out or watching from home. And I want to remind you that it is the beginning of the season, and the beginning of turtle season is today. So if you have oceanside lights, please turn them out, or try to switch them out with the amber ones. We have that awesome display in the back of the meeting room here. You really ought to take a look at it. It's also the beginning, tourist season's going to be heating up, so everybody be kind to each other.
Then I will need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, we are back from closed session, and I would like to report that no action was taken. And I would also like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.